Crimson Trace offers a free Batteries for Life program that includes nearly all laser sights, electronic sights, and rifle scopes. Just register your product for a free set of batteries each year at crimsontrace.com.
Today on Tom Gresham's Gun Talk, a win in the Illinois Supreme Court, a tidal wave of pro-gun sanctuary support, a new organization focused on preventing suicides and violence while offering gun owners safe firearm storage outside of their home in times of crisis, and more. And as always, call us at 866-TALK-GUN with your comments, questions, and range reports. And now, here's Tom.
All righty. We're in the pregame mode of Gun Talk. Well, actually, no, we're in the actual time right now for Gun Talk. Yeah, I know. It's pregame time for that other thing that's going on later today. Don't worry about that. Plenty of time. You'll be able to do Gun Talk and do that if you want to. And yeah, I know people say, I don't watch NFL. I don't do about you. You know what? I like NFL. I like football. I'm not going to let stupid Colin Kaepernick, or whatever he is, make me stop watching a game I like. No, I'm not going to let him win that way. Forget that. By the way, I'm Tom Gresham. I'm the host here. We're going to be talking about guns for hours and hours and hours, because that's what we do. Guns and ammo and scopes and optics and red dots and safes and safety and responsibility and shooting technique and self-defense and safety. Oh, man. You know, and that's a lot of what we do here. It's kind of part and parcel to the whole thing. And sometimes I know. Sometimes it feels like nobody gets us. Well, gee, why would that ever be? Could it be because nobody ever shows us the way we actually are? And it's hard, frankly. I mean, it's hard to get anybody with a huge megaphone, the mass media, to show responsible gun owners being, responsible. Like, storing guns safely, reducing accidental gunshot deaths, which we have, reducing accidental children gunshot deaths, which we have by an unbelievable number, an unbelievable amount. I mean, it is the lowest it's ever been in recorded history, the number of children killed accidentally with firearms in America. And yet, of course, the Bloombergs of the world want to tell you there's this woo-wee epidemic of gun violence. They love that phrase. It means nothing. It's kind of like all the other phrases when you think about it. I just had that thought. Think about all the other phrases they use and how actually none of them have definitions. Actually, none of them have meaning. Could it be by design? After one or two, you might think happenstance. After three or four or five, you start thinking, ooh, this is a design. I mean, I go way back. I go way back to Saturday night specials. We have to ban Saturday night specials. This is 50s and 60s. Well, what are those? Well, they're handguns that are too small and too cheap. Too easy to hide. Really? How cheap? Well, I don't know. Just cheap. $100? Well, I don't know. $200? I don't know. $500? I don't know. Maybe. $1,000? Could be. Well, how big is, how small is too small? Well, I don't know exactly. How about this 14-inch barrel Colt single action? Yeah, that's too small. That was actually included in the guns they wanted to ban, because they thought it didn't have the right kind of safety on it, so they called it a Saturday night special. Cost more than $1,000. 14-inch barrel. Saturday night specials, huh? Too easy to hide, really. If you can put it inside of a coat, would that make it a Saturday night special? I don't know. We just want to ban it. Huh, cool. All right. Now, that didn't work. Well, we got to get rid of sniper rifles. Really, sniper rifles. What's that? Well, I don't know. It's just it's a gun that's designed to shoot a long way. Really, like a deer hunter's rifle. Well, I don't know. Does it have one of those telescopes on it? Yeah, it's got a rifle scope on it. Well, yeah, we've got to ban that. Why is that? Well, it shoots a long way. How far is a long way? I don't know. We just got to get rid of it. Huh. Sniper rifles, huh? Oh, junk guns. They tried junk guns for a while. We got to ban junk guns. Again, there's no definition. I mean, you're picking up the theme, right? There's no definition to any of this stuff. Junk guns. What are junk guns? I don't know. They're just guns that have no purpose. Oh, I see. They're guns you don't like. Well, yeah. They're guns that you don't want personally. Well, yeah, we got to get rid of those. We got to ban those. But what if I want it? What if my wife, what if that single mother over there needs that pistol to protect herself because she knows that the protection order, the court order, is not going to do any good. What is she supposed to do? I don't know. It's a junk gun, though. We got to get rid of it. We got to ban those. Junk guns, no definition. And then, of course, we have the mother of all non-definable terms. Assault weapon. Really? Assault weapon. What is that? I don't know. It looks bad. It's scary looking. It's got a grip. It's got a bayonet lug, because you might bayonet somebody with that thing. It shoots lots of bullets. Really? How many bullets does it shoot when you pull the trigger? I don't know. All of them. Maybe. I don't know. Does it shoot all the magazines at the same time? Yeah, it shoots all the clips. Because you can put all those clips in it. And we got to get rid of those things because it is, in fact, and then we come up with the next one, it is a weapon of war. Really? How many wars have been fought with these? Well, none, actually. But it looks like guns that are used by the military. But it's not one. But it looks like one. So we got to get rid of them. We got to ban those. Well, you know that more people are killed, murdered with fists and feet in the United States than with those. I don't care. We got to get rid of them because they look scary. They frighten me. That's really all that matters. I'm afraid all the time. So I want to ban your guns. Non-definable terms. Non-definable terms. It is a kind of a thing, isn't it? And now, of course, we have the godfather of gun control, the godfather of gun bans, Michael Bloomberg, former New York City mayor, current candidate for president of the United States, many time billionaire, $54 billion and counting, probably made somewhere between $10 and $20 billion last year. Going to spend up to $1 billion on the election, maybe more. And I told you, do not count this guy out. And everybody said, oh, he's not even in the debates. Don't worry about him. He's not a thing. He's just an egomaniacal, and that part's true. Narcissistic. Oh, yeah, well, that part's true, too. Crazy guy. Well, no, that part's not true. He's not crazy. He's very smart. And he has so much money. And he's now in 4th place. And he's moving up. And, he's going to have a $10 billion commercial in the Super Bowl today. Now, they turned down a pro-gun commercial and they turned down a pro-life commercial, but they're going to run his gun control commercial. It's not a campaign commercial for him as much as it is a gun control commercial. Fox News has already put out the information about how there are lies and misinformation in the commercial. They make a claim for how many children are murdered with guns. But of course, as they always do, they include a lot of people in there who are not children. I mean, come on. 18 and 19-year-olds are not children. They may be your child, but by no stretch are they children. If you remove 18 and 19-year-olds, the number drops by half. If you actually drop it down to 12 and under, the number drops by about, 80%. And then they have this woman talking about her child, her son, was killed in gun violence. Well, I guess everyone's son is a child. But in this case, this was a 20-year-old who was killed in a gang shooting. 2 rival gangs get into a shootout. He's 20 years old, and yet this is the child that they want to put forth and say, this is what gun violence is. No, this is what gang violence is. And that's why so many of us have guns to protect ourselves from gang violence. So that'll be running tonight. Donald Trump will have a commercial running tonight in the Super Bowl. Haven't seen that one yet. A lot of things going on, an awful lot of things going on. I do want to read this range report. By the way, if you'd like to join us, it's 866-TALK-GUN or Tom Talk Gun. Just got a range report. Very cool. Let's see. This is for Scott. Scott says, a week or so ago, I was in Oklahoma City. I wanted to eat at a particular restaurant, but it had a no guns allowed sign. I stayed in the parking lot, and I called the manager. I politely asked about the sign. He started out sounding to be a bit defensive, but we soon had a good conversation. He said, I was able to get him to admit that they know people carry concealed in there all the time, and they have no problem with that. He also brought up the case at the Twin Peaks restaurant by saying they just didn't want people open carrying the ARs or AKs in there. I said I totally agreed. He seemed surprised at that. I offered that they could just put up a no open carry sign out front. He said, In other words, I never thought of that. Well, that's not the exact term he used, but he did say he genuinely appreciated the suggestion and that he will bring it up with the owner as soon as he sees him. So what do you think about me having some no open carry signs on hand and give it to the businesses like that? Kind of like that idea, Scott, and a big attaboy on the True Squad no shrug policy. You remember, that's what we're all about on the True Squad, the Gun Talk True Squad. We don't shrug and just say, well, that's just the way it is. We actually speak up. We stand up. We show up. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you about my plan. I got a plan. We have 9 months to the election. I'm going to tell you how I think we win. Not just the presidency, but we win a lot of stuff. But it's going to require something from you. I'm going to ask something from you, every single one of you. And it's not going to be easy. But it is going to be easy. When we come back, my plan, 20 and 2020. Tom Gresham here. Be right back with more Gun Talk.
For 25 years, Crimson Trace has led the industry in laser and light technology and customer service. Now, Crimson Trace is proud to offer electronic sights and rifle scopes for tactical, target, and hunting applications, with the same Crimson Trace offer of free batteries for life on all products. The new rifle scope line is also backed by an unconditional lifetime warranty from the brand that you have trusted for over 2 decades. Find out more at crimsontrace.com.
This land, once wild and free, fades now from our memory. But I remember what it was like, what we were like, what we are capable of when we band together. Perhaps more than any other landscape, wetlands embody the life-giving abundance that nature has to offer. And perhaps more than any other organization, Ducks Unlimited is working to ensure that our continent's wetlands not only survive, but thrive for generations well beyond this one. These natural wonders are where waterfowl begin their cycle of life, where the deer and the antelope play, and where we, the people, gather together to see and share what makes the outdoors so great. The time is now to band together with organizations like Ducks Unlimited. The time is now to rescue our wetlands.
Okay, I got carried away. I said Michael Bloomberg's going to spend $10 billion. No, it's $10 million for his Super Bowl commercial. Although he is going to spend, he says, up to $1 billion in the election. What's the difference between $1 million and $1 billion? Okay, let's do it this way. 1,000,000 seconds. 1,000,000 seconds. How long is that? That's about 11 and a half days. 11 and a half days is 1,000,000 seconds. So how long is 1 billion seconds? If 1,000,000 is 11 and a half days, well, 1 billion seconds is 32 and a half years. And Michael Bloomberg has $54+ billion. Plus he has this national army he has built. Foot soldiers out there. The Moms Demand Action, the Everytown groups that have been conned into thinking that gun control laws reduce crime. Never have. We had 20,000 gun control laws in the U.S. I've never seen any evidence that any of them have ever reduced crime. But he's spending the money. Somebody actually said, does he care if he gets elected? Maybe it's just all the way of defeating Trump. And that may be true. Why would he do it this way? Well, here's a reason. If you buy commercials, now pay attention because this is important. If you buy advertising and commercials as a PAC, a political action committee, you pay a much, much higher rate. If you buy commercials as a candidate, the law says you have to be given the lowest rate that newspaper, TV station, online place has. So if he's buying commercials as a candidate, he gets a great rate and multiplies his buy. Oh, by the way, you may have seen some of his commercials, but chances are you're not seeing a lot of them because if you're conservative, if you're a gun person, you're not on social media sites where they are running, and they are pounding it. I have it on good authority that they are in the process, they being the Bloomberg campaign, in process of opening 240 campaign offices around the country. So there you go. Interesting stuff. Let's see. Line 4, Eric's with us out of Mississippi. Go ahead, Eric.
Hi, Tom. I was calling in to give you all a Second Amendment sanctuary status update here in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
They are getting it passed. The first county to pass it was DeSoto County, which is up towards Memphis, Tennessee. They passed it unanimously. And here in my own county, Alcorn County, which is essentially northeast part of Mississippi, they've got it. They already got it on the board. They already had it passed. They have to put it in the minutes, and they'll be voting on that again in about like the next week or so. And there's some other counties around us, Prentice, Tippah, and I think, there's a few other counties around us that have it on their agenda board to be, or on the agenda to be voted on. Now, there's only one county that turned it down. That was Tishomingo County, and that was at the top right-hand corner of the state. Tishomingo County turned it down. And
let me ask you, are people showing up at these hearings?
Yes, they are. I showed up at this last one. Well, this last one, I tried to get it. Well, I like to say first, I was originally started getting this started here in my own county back shortly before Christmas, but a lot of the supervisors and whatnot were on vacation during that time, so it's hard to get a hold of them. So I waited the next year, and I started making phone calls and trying to get a hold of them. And just one day, I just made a phone call, and they said, "Oh, we already got that on the agenda to be voted on tonight." I was like, "Oh, okay." Someone else someone else in another group here in Corinth beat me to it, but I was working on getting that in the process. But
how are people finding out about it? That's the one thing I always wonder about is how do people know what's going on?
Well, I looked on Facebook. I didn't see anything going on in my local town, about getting a group together or putting it on the agenda at all. So I thought, well, I guess I'm the only one that's going to try this. So, but yeah, I didn't know anything about it. But I like to give all the listeners just some encouragement. All it takes is just one phone call. Just call up to your board of supervisors or whoever's over that in your county or jurisdiction. Just takes one phone call. Ask them, say, how do I go about getting Second Amendment status sanctuary passed here in this county? And they'll tell you, they'll direct you. I got directed to the Chancellery clerk, and I called over there, and they told me about it. And whenever I called them, they said, "Oh, it's already on the agenda." I was like, "Oh, okay, that's good."
That is terrific.
And I just showed up that night.
I'm going to encourage, if you don't already, you need to belong to your state gun rights groups, because that's going to be the best way to find out what's going on and coordinate and make sure you guys are not duplicating effort. I mean, there's the Mississippi Gun Owners Association. There's some other stuff out there, but you need to belong to all of them. And I'm not just you, all of us do. Look, I got a scoot here. I appreciate the call, Eric, and way to go. Excellent. All right, I came up with an idea. Let me back up. Virginia is our best example of what happens when we don't show up at the polls. Last November in Virginia, gun owners stayed home and they lost. They lost the state. Gun owners lost the state. Yeah, I know. They had a huge rally there a couple of weeks ago. And immediately after that, the Democrats who are in the state assembly there started passing a laundry list of gun control laws. And they're just going through. They're just going through. Well, how can they go through? Because they want to. Because they got elected. Because, as they say, elections have consequences. And Virginia gun owners woke up, but they woke up too late. Now, maybe they can take it back. Maybe they can undo a lot of this stuff in the future. But the lesson here is this. If you live in a state where you don't feel threatened, wake the hell up. Because Virginia gun owners thought they lived in a state where it couldn't happen. A lot of other people in other states thought the same thing. Not only can it happen, it is happening. Trust me on this one. If you never listened to anything I ever said before, trust me. There are people in your state capital right now working to pass all of these repressive gun control laws. And I don't care where you live. They're there. The Bloomberg people are there, and they're well-funded, and they are organized, and they could put feet, on the path, and they could put butts in the chairs. So how do we win? Well, we don't have 50 or 60. Actually, Bloomberg just promised $60 million just for the election, not for him, but for electing gun control candidates, anti-gun candidates this year. Well, we don't have $60 million. The NRA doesn't have it. The NRA spent $30 million in 2016. They don't have anything close to that now. The NRA is a mess. One of their key people just was removed. faced with sexual assault charges. It's just god-awfulest mess over there. The only reason I bring that up is this. For years, I've heard people say, well, why didn't the NRA do anything? Think about that. Why didn't they do something? Oh, really? And I've always answered the same way. Where were you? What did you do? So here it is. I got a plan. You may not have $60 million, but you got 20 minutes. Do you have 20 minutes? Will you give 20 minutes to the Second Amendment? Will you give 20 minutes for your country? I need 20 minutes a day. Oh, wow. Really? Seriously? You don't have 20 minutes a day? Yeah, you do. Here's how we win. We put millions of us working 20 minutes a day. And what do you do with that? Well, spend half of it just getting educated. Because a lot of people do not pay attention. They don't go on these websites. They don't know the stories. They're not going to ammoland.com or keepandbeararms.com. That's okay. Follow me on Twitter. I am at Gun Talk. Follow me on Twitter, and I will give you the information. Because you can't take action if you're not informed. You don't know what to do if you don't know what's going on. So that's your first step. So 10 minutes of your 20 minutes a day is you spend it being informed. The other 10 minutes is you spend it sending an email. You talk to your friends. You make phone calls. You make sure that the people in your senator and congressman's offices know your name and know your voice. You have a Second Amendment buddy, and you guys go to these events. And here's the other thing. You have to be registered to vote. And then you have to get other people registered to vote. And you have to have every gun show and every gun store and every shooting range has to have a way to get people registered to vote. And then we have to get people to the polls. There's a great website that will help you with this. It's gunvote.org, gunvote.org. So my question to you is this. Will you commit to 20 minutes a day? If not, I don't actually know that we have a path that gets us where we need to go. If you will, I want to know about it. 866-TALK-GUN. We are actually doing some winning out there. When we come back, I got a big story about a recent win. Yeah, we actually can win.
What's so hard to understand about shall not be infringed? Here's Tom.
Yeah, I know. You think you know what it means, and I think I know what it means, but sometimes we need a lot of help convincing everybody what that kind of stuff means. In fact, I was involved in an online conversation this week, and I was kind of amazed at the number of gun owners who are not aware, I think, of how much we are winning. And yes, I know there are some losses in the states, the red flag laws, the universal background check nonsense. But we're winning actually a fair number of times in the courts. That doesn't get as much attention, but I am of the opinion, just me, okay, that I think that's where we're going to end up winning the whole deal. And I'll give you my thoughts about that in just a little bit. One of the really smart attorneys working on Second Amendment cases out there is David Jensen. He joins us right now with a big win out of the state of Illinois. David, how are you, sir?
Hi, Tom. I'm doing great. How are you?
Excellent. Okay. If you would, try to put aside your lawyer hat for a second, because I know how that goes, and try to explain this in terms that we can understand. What is this case?
Okay. Well,
I stopped him right there.
The big issue. Yeah, I had to think about that one for a minute.
I love it. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Here's about the most straightforward way I can give it to you. There was a law enacted in 1996, a federal law called the Firearms Owner Protection Act, which you are undoubtedly already aware of, at least some aspects.
Sure.
There were several provisions in that. One of them was the provision 18 U.S.C. 921A, whatever it was, the provision that covers transporting guns between two jurisdictions where they're legal, even if you're crossing through a place where they're not, which, living in New York can be particularly pertinent. Another provision was the amendment that prohibited the manufacture of new guns after May of 1986, which we were probably all aware of. One provision was an amendment to the 1968 Gun Control Act to create a new exception from the law that prohibits people with felony convictions from possessing guns. Okay. And that exception applied where someone had had civil rights restored, those words, by the jurisdiction that had convicted them. Okay. And when Congress subsequently enacted the Lautenberg Amendment, so the provision of federal law that says that someone with a domestic violence misdemeanor conviction is also prohibited, they put that same exception in that prohibition. So you've got laws that prohibit people with felony convictions and people with misdemeanor domestic battery convictions from possessing guns, and there is an exception there for people who have had civil restored. So that's the essential backdrop that gets us up to where we're at. Okay. The second thing that happened is in about the first 4 years after the original law was passed in 1986, federal courts were kind of all over the place on how to interpret that provision. And in particular, the biggest issue was when Congress enacted this civil rights restored provision, they never defined civil rights restored. So there was a decision out of the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals in 1990, and in that decision, it quickly announced that the only rights that would matter for this analysis would be the right to vote, the right to serve on a jury, or the right to hold public office. And they put in a footnote where they rejected the claim that the loss and restoration of gun rights would be restorative language by citing, I'm drawing a blank on this case, Miller, United States versus Miller.
Sure,
and
1939.
Saying, individual right to own a firearm. So, obviously, when the Supreme Court later on said, no, there is an individual right to own a firearm, that line of thinking was, at a very minimum, called into doubt. But what had happened in the interim was every other federal appellate court to consider the question simply followed the Sixth Circuit. And that was the situation when the Supreme Court decided Heller in 2008. To the extent that courts reconsidered the matter again, they were generally saying, well, we're bound by stare decisis. We've already decided this.
So
Heller doesn't draw it down that much.
And in Heller, Justice Scalia said, look, the Second Amendment is an individual right. Every person has this right unless it's been, and so that was in conflict with what the Sixth Circuit said. So bring us forward. What just happened in Illinois? What was this case?
So what happened exactly is Shauna Johnson, who may very well be listening right now, got referred to me by a mutual acquaintance about 6 years ago. That mutual acquaintance was someone, it was Belinda Rowe. I don't think there's any issue with saying who it was. We had both been involved back during the Moore versus Madigan case, getting carry licensing put in place in Illinois. And so she knew me from then, kind of in a small world coincidence. Shauna actually lives about 10 miles from the town where my family was located for several generations. And as I started working, Shauna had a FOID card, an Illinois Firearms Owner ID card, and she had a battery conviction from 2001 that concerned a former husband, and without, as is often the case, the details behind that basic statement are involved. But
sure, and it gets, whenever you get domestic battery, it gets muddy. Yeah, who hit who and who was defending and all that. But anyway, she had this conviction, and so therefore she was considered by Illinois, she couldn't have a gun. Is that what the deal?
That was the deal, but what also happened was there was a bit of a change in interpretation that took place, because originally there had been an understanding that if someone pleaded out to just a bare misdemeanor battery charge as opposed to domestic battery, this wouldn't apply. And when she had actually made the decision to plead guilty back 20 years ago that she had specifically discussed that issue with the state's attorney. So then thereafter, she got a firearms owner identification card and had it for some period of time. And there came to be a point in time when Illinois State Police determined that this battery conviction had concerned an ex-husband, so they revoked the FOID card. And she then filed a pro se petition to try to get that FOID card back in the local circuit court.
Oh, trying to take care of herself.
In it.
All right, Dave, I'm
trying to take care of herself.
All right, hold on just for a second. I got to take a quick break here. I want to come back because I want to let people understand this is a big win, and we are winning a lot of these cases in the courts. We're talking with David Jensen. He is the attorney who handled this case. This is a big one. You want to hang on for this one because it's important stuff. 866-TALK-GUN. We'll be right back with more gun talk.
When the U.S. military's elite units and law enforcement agencies across the globe demanded innovation and reliability, they didn't settle. They chose Sig Sauer. When world champion professional shooters demanded precision accuracy, they didn't settle. They chose Sig Sauer. So it's no surprise more and more civilian gun owners are refusing to settle for anything less. They're choosing Sig Sauer firearms, ammunition, electro-optics, suppressors, air guns, and training. Sig Sauer. Never settle.
Attacks happen every day. How will you react? See real people put into real-life criminal attack situations on First Person Defender. Discover what works and what doesn't. Kidnapping, ATM robbery, home invasion, and other attacks. Learn how to save your life and the lives of your family. Get the entire first season on DVD at shopguntalk.com. Get prepared. Shopguntalk.com.
Hi, this is Tom Gresham from Gun Talk. America is losing critical wildlife habitat at a rate of 1 football field every hour. It's happening on the Louisiana coast, but it's critical to all sportsmen and conservationists. These precious wetlands provide winter habitat for more than 10 million ducks and geese annually, waterfowl that migrate north through dozens of states. Don't shrug it off. Get involved. You can help. Visit vanishingparadise.org. All right, we're talking with David Jensen. He is the attorney who handled this very important case out of Illinois involving a FOID card. That's the Firearms Owner's Identification Card that you're required to have in Illinois. And David, I appreciate you allowing me to take a quick break there. Go ahead with this because I think this is an important case.
Okay, so the objective really became that, and this was on my end, I saw this civil rights restored issue as a live issue and one that really should have been decided differently, where what had basically happened is, for no particularly good reason, the federal courts had all adopted this line of authority. The U.S. Supreme Court had never ruled on it. And so when we got this in front of the Illinois Supreme Court, we made our argument first and foremost, and this had been the case in the court below too, but the argument was that an Illinois court's order restoring gun rights that had been taken away would make that language in the federal prohibition applicable, meaning that civil rights restored exception would apply.
Okay.
So because the civil rights restored exception applies, the provision in state law saying that a court can't grant relief if it would violate federal law is not an issue. So the circuit court's order directing Illinois State Police to reissue a FOID card to Shauna was affirmed. So where this leaves us is we now have 2 state Supreme Courts, it's New Hampshire and Illinois, who have looked at this issue post-Heller and said the civil rights restored language applies to a determination that someone should get their gun rights back by a state agency or a state court. And we've got several federal appellate court decisions that say the opposite. So at this point, what makes this really a big win is, aside from the direct application for people living in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
It's creating a situation where we can hopefully get this line of authority corrected at some point in the future by getting courts to reconsider what was decided in the past.
Could this apply to felonies, or is it only for misdemeanors?
It would potentially apply to felonies. Well, on its face, it would definitely apply to felonies if, and again, I want to emphasize this, in order to get relief under this provision of the Floyd Act, I mean, we had a full day evidentiary hearing with, I think, 8 witnesses or something. We had brought in all the files from the original charges.
It's not easy.
You have to establish to the court's satisfaction that there really is not a public safety issue with you having guns, notwithstanding that 20 years ago you pled guilty to this thing.
Right. Gotcha.
The real issue is that because of the intricacies of Illinois law, most people with felony convictions are not permanently barred from having firearms in the first place. The people, it wasn't set up by design this way, but the way that it worked out is that the only category of people who can't get their rights back are people with domestic violence misdemeanor convictions who did not serve any time in jail.
Okay. So, I mean, it's a big deal. And now, is it possible, I mean, I'm just kind of spitball here, is it possible this is the kind of thing that could end up before the U.S. Supreme Court?
I'd say there's a good possibility of that, and I would say that unless and until the Supreme Court addresses this issue, there are going to continue to be conflicts between, at a minimum, states that take this view and federal courts that don't.
And there it is, and we're pushing it. I know there are other cases. Would you agree with me that we are actually winning a number of cases in the courts that maybe a lot of the gun rights people may not be aware of?
I think that's the case. You know, one thing that I've noticed is when there's a ruling on something that's a really big thing, like Moore versus Madigan, Cary in Illinois, that got a lot of attention.
Right.
If it's not something that reduces itself to a really good one-line headline,
yep,
it's not going to get that much attention. And you know, in this case in particular, the decision came out during the middle of SHOT Show and during NRA board meetings. So, to be frank, a lot of people who would have been paying attention were otherwise engaged.
Well, I'm glad we were able to talk about it. David Jensen, thank you so much for what you're doing. This is Second Amendment work. It's also civil rights work, because the two are absolutely the same in most cases, at least in my view. I want to thank you for all the hard work you do.
Tom, I really appreciate it, and thank you.
Absolutely. You take care, sir. Yeah, this is a big deal. Restoring rights, which I would offer never should have been taken away in the first place. The whole idea that you lose your gun rights for the commission of a misdemeanor. A misdemeanor. Lose your civil rights, your constitutional rights. That was the Lautenberg Amendment. Frank Lautenberg, New Jersey. Horrible, horrible law. Pushed through by the Democrats. And now we have the whole slate of Democrats who are trying to outdo each other with calls for gun bans. Gun ban this, gun ban that. Michael Bloomberg running a $10 million commercial today on the Super Bowl. And his whole 60-second commercial is about gun control, pushing gun control, taking away your rights. And, of course, it's going to be, you know, a mother, a grieving mother, or it's for the children. But the problem is no gun control law has ever been shown. Let me repeat that. No gun control law has ever been shown to reduce crime. Even the CDC looked at it and said, we cannot find any evidence of a gun control law that has reduced crime. It doesn't work. What does it do? It takes guns away from you, takes guns away from me, makes us criminals. Where's it come from? It comes from that condescending thing. You saw that CNN lineup, didn't you? Laughing at us, mocking us. Huh. Credulous boomer rubes. We'll talk about that when we come back. 866 Talk Gun. Will you give me 20 in 2020? You gotta love this. Michael Bloomberg talking about Mr. Jack Wilson, who of course shot and killed the murderer who was trying to kill more people in the church in Texas a few weeks ago. The man had already killed 2 church members. So Jack Wilson pulled out his pistol and shot this man one time in the head, killed him, stopped the murder. So Michael Bloomberg says, well, it may be true that someone in the congregation had his own gun and killed the person who murdered 2 other people, but it's the job of law enforcement to have guns and to decide when to shoot. You just do not want the average citizen carrying a gun in a crowded place. It's the job of law enforcement to have guns and to decide when to shoot. In other words, listen to that. You shouldn't have a gun. It's the job of law enforcement to have guns. He doesn't think anybody who's not law enforcement should have a gun. Michael Bloomberg. There it is. I know. He's hiding behind the whole mom's demand, every town deal. Talk about marketing. Holy cow. Great marketing. Got to give him credit. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? Because if we don't show up and vote, we lose. This is a really simple formula. The world belongs to those who show up. If we don't show up and if we don't vote, we lose. And the Democrats in Virginia are the best example of that. Of course, you could also look to Washington State and Oregon and some other states where they've taken over. And they do whatever they want to. They don't care what you say. They don't care what you petition. They don't care what you call. I mean, if you don't show up and vote, you lose. Here's a question for you. Are you registered to vote? I heard a few years ago, I don't know if it's true, but it was told to me as though it's true, and I think it probably is. They said that half of NRA members are not registered to vote. Well, then what good are you? I'm sorry, what good are you? If you're not look, there are lists that you need to be proud of to be on. I'm proud to be on some list. People say, well, I've got called for jury duty. Well, own up, cowboy up, come on. That's part of being a citizen. You have to be registered. And more than that, you have to work hard at getting everybody else registered. Every gun show needs to have a voter registration effort. Every gun store needs to have the information there. You need to know about early voting and spread the word. You need to have a Second Amendment buddy. I put all of this in the newsletter that went out last week. I hope you're getting our newsletters. It's free. You just sign up. Go to guntalk.com. What happens if we do all that? We win. That was a short answer. We don't have $60 million, but we got 60 million people. Actually, you don't need 60 million people. We need 10 million people. We need 10 million of you. And here's the deal. There is no them. There's just you and there's just me. There's not even an us. Because that sounds collective, and there is not that. It's you and me getting up every day and saying, I'm going to put in 20 minutes today. I need 20 minutes in the year 2020. 20 in 2020. What are you going to do with that? I don't know. Do something. Go online. Post something. Post something to Facebook. Speak to friends. Get involved. First of all, you have to join your state groups. You should join national groups as well. I personally think the Second Amendment Foundation and the Firearms Policy Coalition are two of the best. But also you have to belong to your state groups. Otherwise, you won't know when the event is, when you're supposed to show up. You want to get a lot of people to show up there? Here's a hint for you. We did this here in Louisiana, give away guns. Everybody who shows up on the gun rights side, your name gets entered into a chance to win some guns we're going to give away, a raffle. People will show up. You probably even have a gun or two you could donate. Things you haven't shot in 20 years. I know I do. So here's the question. And I'm asking, this is not rhetorical. Will you sign up? Will you do 20 minutes a day in 2020? If you do, we win. If you don't, who knows? 866-TALK-GUN will get you in here. I'm Tom Gresham. We'll be right back with more gun rights news right here on Gun Talk.